IT Insights, talks on business and IT challenges with tech leaders.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of IT Insights by Future Processing. My name is Michał Grela and my guest today is Tiffany Haynes, CEO and Chief People Officer at Fingercheck. Hello, Tiffany.
Hey, how are you?
Very good, thank you. It's lovely to have you here. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Tiffany, you're on the market for more than 20 years now in the industry. Can you say something more about your previous experience and what you've been up to all this time?
Yeah, for sure. So I've been in financial technology space for almost 20 years now. Everything from, operations, program management, people operations. I did some M&A work. I was the chief people officer for an S&P 500 company, served as vice president of the consumer facing experiences. So I've definitely been in a lot of different roles, different opportunities. And then now I am the COO and Chief People Officer at Fingercheck. And so, we're just about enabling small businesses with just some feature-rich solutions that are really simple and powerful so those business owners can spend more time in the business and less time running the business. So just kind of HR tech mashed up with fintech is where I sit today.
That's exactly the topic of our conversation, because I know that you're passionate about putting people first and enabling businesses with solutions that are simple and powerful at the same time, that are focused around making the life of people easier. And I want to start with that. Let's start with employee well-being, as I know people-centrism is your jam.
Mm-hmm.
And seems like, looking at what's going on the market right now, trends or aspects such as big quit and big resignation are already a serious threat and unfortunately are here to stay. And that's, of course, putting a risk to businesses nowadays.
Yeah.
But why do you think is that, and how to stay on top of these risks from your point of view?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I suppose it's all in how you frame it. Is it a risk? Yes. But we have to remember risk holds great reward when you've really got the right mindset and a solid plan. So, from a COVID perspective, that just magnified the employee, and in employers having to really offer more grace and flexibility in the workplace. So we've kind of put the onus back on the employee, a little more control on the employee. And then kind of as things progress, the employee became a little more autonomous, a little more introspective about how they wanted to work, where they wanted to work, and those behaviors changed, which is why we saw the big quit, we saw the big resignation, we're hearing about quiet quitting now. And it's not that it's necessarily all the time a bad thing, because I do believe, all the happenings really forced a much needed balance between the employee and the employer relationship. And so we were kind of due for a little correction there. So that's kind of what I would say, just big picture risk. How would I frame that up? But then, if you're a business owner, that's also how you need to think about it. How can I really leverage this risk to benefit my business? And so as an employer, you don't hold all the power, but you do have to help balance the need of the employee and the need of the business. And so as a business, you just need to remember that the employee has more control and more flexibility than they did before. So how are you going to win, right? How are you going to go to market from a talent perspective so that you can leverage that risk? So, you can win on pay, you can win maybe on how you pay, you can win on other total rewards like financial wellness, well-being, you can win on flexibility of work location. You can win on the draw of tech and innovation of what you're doing. There's lots of different opportunities, and you don't need to win on everything, but you do need to pick a lane or a couple of lanes and be really committed and be really clear in what you offer, and then draw in those people who are aligned with that differentiator that you had. Put it in your online profile, make a sign, hang it in your retail window, live it each day, whatever your it is that you're going to draw people in for. And pitch that as an employee differentiator, and people will begin to see that the more consistent you are, and you'll be surprised kind of what the outcome is.
when it comes to this employee well-being and this intersection between the say the interests and goals of the employee and on the employer on the other hand,
Mhm.
somewhere in between there's an aspect of improving financial wellness of employees. Is that already a trend, or is it just a buzzword, or is something that people are taking a look at? And how technology supports that aspects? I mean, aspects such as, for example, earned wage access
Yeah.
as a way to improve financial wellness and employee well-being.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really good question. So I definitely think in financial wellness, financial literacy, financial accessibility, that is certainly a trend and needs to continue to be a trend. And we all need to kind of push that forward because that's really what we need to solve for. So, when we talk about earned wage access, it's not necessarily a way to improve financial wellness, but it is a tool to kind of help break the cycle of payday loans, of other predatory lending and fee practices that are happening in financial services. And so earned wage access is a safer and more secure alternative, but we need to recognize like it's still reactive, it's not proactive. But it's also becoming a trend, just like financial wellness. And I think these two can work hand in hand. So if we kind of take a step back and evaluate, like where is earned wage access, which is a piece of what you were talking about, like kind of on the hype cycle. We really have to consider a few different variables, like the technology is present. So, to your point, is there technology that supports EWA? Yes, for sure. Two, there is a growing visibility and kind of underscoring of financial accessibility, of financial wellness, of financial literacy, like you spoke of. But then we have like inflation, right? Inflation has created pressure on wages. We have an energy crisis. We have all these kind of dynamics that are happening globally. And then on top of that, we have employees that are creating pressure on the employers to be more people centric, like we talked about before. So, when you think about all of these variables kind of swirling around, and step back and look at what's happening, I definitely think we're not done talking about earned wage access because we're nowhere near ubiquity on this topic. And there's also just this big push to get the employee back in control of their financials. And right now, those companies dictate it, right? I pay you maybe once a month. I pay you every other week. I don't typically pay once a week, and I don't typically pay on demand, and I certainly don't stream payments. So, we have a lot of room, I think, to pursue and continue to mature this topic.
Yeah, especially if we have, for example, real-time payments, then why don't we have real-time payroll?
Yep. Great question. Put that in your, I think that's a good mental model to kind of work through. Well, and I think too, like you said, like real-time payments aren't totally real yet, right? That's not ubiquitous either. And think about how much we've been working towards that globally and just at a country level. So we just have tons of work to do here across financial services and fintech, which, particularly financial services tends to be slow on tech adoptions. And it's just built on decades of this archaic technology, and all these startups are trying to, figure out how to do it faster. And so that's kind of number one issue, right?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like there is a big need to have conversation about that, and I hope that each conversation like this one will contribute to the progress of this trend in general. Because as you say, there's a lot of legacy and heritage when it comes to even the basics of the business, not to mention sexy stuff such as being on, spearheading the market when it comes to not only technology but also this people-centric aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I think you're exactly right. Like it is a dialogue. There's no one perfect solution. It's kind of like living at Grand Central Station. There's these, all these different tracks and times and different things happening. And you're trying to figure out, like in the payment space, whether it's real time, payments, or we're dreaming about real time payroll. you're trying to figure out like which track will get you to the next track, to get you to the next track, to get you to your final destination. So I think that makes it exciting, but also really difficult there, because there isn't just a one way, nonstop pass to get to where we need to be.
I know that the aspect of women in fintech is really close to you, and it's a subject of your interest. Tell us, please, why is that important, and how can companies contribute?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. Yeah, so I've lived at the intersection of technology and financial services my entire career, with an S&P 500 company, and now I'm at a late stage startup out of New York City. But let me just kind of speak to both audiences here. If I had something to say to the women, something to beg them for, like I just implore the women to take more risk. We play it too safe too much. We set ourselves up in life to not take risks in some cases. So as you're thinking about yourself in life, as you're thinking about whatever that next step looks like for you, just honestly, personally and professionally, you need to design your life to take more risks, making the ask, stop asking permission, speak up, be consistent, be genuine, but do dare greatly. Because you have to be courageous in your leadership. You have to be brave in the gigs that you take. Nobody really knows what they're doing. So I think women just believe that lie that the men have it figured out better than they do, and that's just not true. We're all learning, right? So that's what I would say to the women, before I would speak to the companies and kind of the allies out there. So what I would counter with them is you need to reward the risk. Watch for when the women take the risk. And sometimes, it's in small ways, like coming back after maternity leave. That is a risk. Asking for a new experience or a project, that is a risk. Pushing back and respectfully challenging is risky. Failing fast is both humbling and risky. And when you reward that, when you encourage that, you create a safe environment to have that happen more. And I think when both sides really work together on that risk-taking topic, really everybody benefits. The industry benefits, the work benefits, the women benefit, the company benefits. And we make more progress together because we're creating that safe environment and that innovative environment that can really help thrive and push us forward.
Especially bearing in mind that women do have everything it takes to be more bold, and it's predominantly about the approach and attitude towards taking risk and not being aware of standing up for themselves. And this self-worth and self-consciousness here are definitely need to come in play more often.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well said.
I do believe it's an imperative for organizations to encourage that sort of mindset and foster a space for all people to thrive, regardless of sex.
Yep. Totally agree.
But back to technology, last but not least, from your perspective, since you're boots on the ground when it comes to tech industry, what trends are now, let's say, the most disruptive or the most influencing the industry at the moment in general, since Largo?
Yeah. I think everybody's, leans different ways from technology, because it's especially the fintech, like it's just moving so quickly and has moved super quickly these last couple years. So, for me, what makes me click on that read or go do some more research? I think everyone is a little cold from crypto right now, but DeFi hasn't made its mark yet. We have lots of room to kind of DeFi our traditions as it relates to financial services. Payroll, as generic and unfun as it sounds, has not had its disruptive moment yet. We talked about real-time payments and faster payments, and we hinted to how are we going to get to real-time payroll, right? How are we going to make sure, as the small business or the businesses get paid faster, through their invoicing and merchant and all of that work. How are we going to counterbalance that with making sure employees get paid faster for those earned wages? So I would just underscore that. But I think that's one to watch. Another one, is cannabis. Those players have to move money, and it's tough to move money in the cannabis industry just because of regulations. So those are just things that I think are interesting and ones I kind of, again, like look to when I'm scrolling and doing some research. I usually pick up on those because there's definitely more work to be done.
It sounds like plenty of challenges ahead, but well, it's a very interesting path to take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good stuff out there. Nobody's bored.
Yeah,
Everybody has things to do.
That's good. I mean, that's good. Thank you, Tiffany, for sharing your insights. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure.
And thank you, our listeners, for being with us on this another episode of IT Insights. If you liked it, don't hesitate to share it, and please do drop us a line if you'd like to have a different topic covered during one of the future episodes of IT Insights. Thank you.
Visit us at itinsights.tech and dive into our podcasts, webinars, and events.